All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Furman,
Present.
Councilmember Holmes,
Present.
Councilmember Miller,
Present.
and Mayor Ortiz,
Present.
and Mayor Pro Tem Ramos Hamid is absent.
All right, thank you. And do we have any public comments?
None, Mayor.
All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn to closed session. Thanks.
Check.
All right, thank you all for joining us. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Furman.
Present.
Councilmember Holmes.
Present.
Councilmember Miller.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramos Hamid.
Present.
And Mayor Ortiz.
Present. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and start off with our invocation. We have Pastor Dave McCoy from Garden Fellowship Church.
Mr. Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, council members, thank you for letting me be here. It's a privilege to join you here today. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time that you've given us to discuss things and to approve things and what have you for the city of Indio. Father, I ask your blessing, Lord, on the city council members, on the mayor as they weigh these decisions. Lord, we ask, Lord, for your continued favor over the city of Indio, that the citizens of Indio may continue to prosper and enjoy the peace that we do have, even in these uncertain times. So, Father, we commit these proceedings into your loving, capable hands. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. And next we have our Pledge of Allegiance, and we have Gary Franco from Roosevelt Elementary. Hey, Gary. So Gary Franco, soon to be 9 years old, is a third grader at Roosevelt Elementary School. Gary is an athlete and plays baseball and basketball. His dream is to one day become a scientist to help people. In his free time, he loves to draw, do math problems, and play with Legos. All right. Ready, Gary? All right, go ahead whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. All right, thank you, Gary. And we got a gift for you too. We have a backpack for you here. Backpack for you here. Nice to meet you. You want to take a picture real quick over here? Yeah. All right. All right, next up we have our Salton Sea presentation, but first we have two public comments. And we have the first one from Mr. Chuck Parker.
Good evening. It's good to see you all again. We wanted to come and express our opinion on the Salton Sea Management Plan and also the long-term plan that they turned in, which is really just an extension of the Salton Sea Management Plan. I'm going to read from these comments briefly. As residents of the Coachella Valley concerned about the decline of the Salton Sea, there are many reasons to be disappointed in the Salton Sea Management Plan's 10-year plan and the draft long-range plan that is based on it. They were supposed to have submitted an actual long-range plan last December, but instead they submitted a draft which was 13 different choices that were based on studies that were done as long ago as 2006. They rejected and deemed infeasible ocean water import, which this council and all of the other city councils in the valley supported, and which I believe science supports. The plan, as it's being carried out, fails to control blowing dust, which causes widespread respiratory disease and death. The only effective way to control the dust is to refill the sea with ocean water, totally eliminating the dust problem. Second, the 10-year plan failed to take a realistic estimate of future declining water supplies at the Salton Sea. As we all know, the 23-year-long drought along the Colorado River in the entire Southwest is drastically reduced the amount of water that's available. And in 2026, at the end of 2026, the Bureau of Reclamation is going to recommend, or is going to come up with a new distribution plan to replace the one that was drawn up in 1922. It's always been an overestimate. Going back to that point, they estimated that there was 17 million acre feet of water available from the river, when it's actually shown in the past 100 years that it's been more like 13 million. And that's why these reservoirs at Lake Mead and Lake Powell are so depleted. All the agencies and cities and states have been withdrawing more water than was flowing in. So these draft plans that were submitted, that are now being studied by the Army Corps of Engineers for another 3 years, are based on estimates which many people believe are estimates of the water that will be available, which many people, even including scientists and experts, believe are overly optimistic. And so this makes the idea of importing water even more urgent, because if water is imported, it can be desalinated and a new source of water can be created. And even the lithium industry, which is going to be developed down there, is going to need an additional 50,000 acre feet of very clean water every year. So we urge you to, we don't think that the Salton Sea Management Plan needs to be perfect, but just to remember that the long-term, what we hope for is a restoration, and what we're looking at is probably a more severe decline and a lot of health problems. So thank you. I'll leave a few copies of these for the city clerk to give to the council members if they want one. Thank you.
Mr. Parker. And next we have Feliz Nunez.
Good evening, City Council members and Mayor. I just wanted to point out that, again, the need to bring water is not to save birds anymore or fish because they're not around. The main purpose of bringing water at this point is to stop the dust and help the human health crisis that is going on. It's been going on for a while. There's the boatman bugs that are increasing and getting the mirrors in the water. There's the solar panels that are bringing in more heat. The furrowing that's being done hasn't controlled the dust in the air. The bales of hay are causing allergies. On top of the toxic dust, the water is concentrated. There's odor in the air. We don't have state-of-the-art wastewater plants that will take care of the sewage, so we're having raw sewage escape into the Alamo and New Rivers that are going into the Salton Sea. And we're not against lithium. We feel that if we put water in the Salton Sea, it would also protect the workers that are going to be working in that company. So again, this is a call for the need to bring ocean water, which would benefit everybody, and more so in the future if it is desalinated and we do have water that's potable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Ruben Perez.
Good afternoon, Mayor, esteemed council. My name is Ruben Perez, and I'm here on behalf of Assembly Member Eduardo Garcia. Assembly Member Garcia wanted to welcome and commend Miguel Hernandez for his great work at California Natural Resources Agency, as well as his leadership of the mayor for requesting the presentation. California leadership has stepped up accelerating action on the Salton Sea. Last month, we celebrated a new milestone by kicking off a geophysical survey work on the North Lake Pilot Demonstration Project. The Prop 68 California Parks Bond, Assemblymember Garcia authored, provided $19.25 million to fund this project. The state of California is near completion on the Species Conservation Habitat Project, a $200 million large-scale construction project on the southern end of the sea that will reduce exposed lakebed and create environmental habitat. Assemblymember Garcia's focus has been holding the state accountable for its obligation to the Salton Sea and our community, delivering historic Salton Sea investments. Altogether, Assemblymember Garcia's policy work and collaborative advocacy has secured $500 million in funding from the state of California, and we're pushing for even more. Assemblymember Garcia has introduced AB 1567, a California climate resiliency bond that proposes an additional $400 million for the Salton Sea, with $40 million allocated to the Salton Sea Authority to implement community priorities. this bill is active in the legislative process. Furthermore, we were pleased to see California's Building Forward Library Facilities Improvement Program award $4.6 million for the Indio Library. This equity-based program is committed to addressing critical maintenance needs, improving energy efficiency and sustainability, extending digital access, and expanding physical access to local library facilities. We congratulate the city on this success and commend city staff for their great work. This latest news builds off of early investments made for our region. The program's initial funding round allocated $4.5 million to support the Coachella Valley, nearly $10 million for Coachella Valley libraries altogether. Lastly, it has been a year of great investment for the state of California and from the state of California for the city of Indio. We are eagerly awaiting the TREC's presentation or groundbreaking for the $8.5 million sports park on Avenue 44 that the city received through Prop 68 park bond funds. It is a pleasure to be of service to you. Know that you have an ally and friend in the state legislature that will keep bringing home investment. Please feel free to reach out if we can be of any assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. And now we'll move on to our presentation from Mr. Miguel Hernandez from the California Natural Resources Agency. Go ahead.
Thank you, City Council members. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Miguel Hernandez. I'm the Public Affairs Officer with the State of California with the California Natural Resources Agency, and I'm part of the Salton Sea Management Program team. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief and hopefully succinct presentation of what the state is doing to address concerns on the Salton Sea. If we can hit the next slide, please. Thank you. And yeah, so just I'll briefly, the purpose of this presentation here today, and perhaps you might be aware, the state of California and myself are kind of doing these rounds with multiple city council meetings in the region, including Imperial County. So our purpose is to provide a brief update on what we're doing, what's currently happening out there, and what's coming sort of down the pipeline as far as projects and processes that are coming for the coming years. So please stop me at any time if I need to answer any questions. I'll try to be brief as possible. Just to kind of cover what's going to be shown here today, I'll explain a little bit of who we are, who the Salton Sea Management Program is, how that came to be, and a little bit about the Salton Sea Management Program projects, the active projects, and again, what's coming down the pipeline and planning phases for the future of the Salton Sea. So the team, the Salton Sea Management Program team, is actually comprised of three main agencies: the California Natural Resources Agency, the California Department of Water Resources, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. However, these are the three agencies from the state, but we don't act alone. We're not able to. In fact, you might be hearing that collaboration, it's a key thing on our program. The state relies on partnerships with our tribal governments. Federal partners are also important and actually helping us spearhead all the work. Also local landowners and water districts in the region as well. So there's a multiple set of collaboration happening all across the board in order to make our work happen at the Salton Sea. So you'll hear me say collaboration multiple times along this presentation. So just to briefly recap, perhaps none of you are new to this issues with the Salton Sea, but the primary concern is the exposed lake bed at the Salton Sea and how that could impact the air quality in the region and potentially the health of our communities across the region and even to the state of Arizona and even to across the border as well. So that's a major concern and something that it's a driver for our projects to occur in an expedited way. Gotta say though that the state is behind on its acreage goals, on our own goals that were set by the state. However, we're taking big strides to meet our own goals to cover that exposed lake bed. Another issue is the increased salinity in the waters in the Salton Sea, and due to evaporation, less water coming in, multiple factors that play a role, giving the shrinking of the Salton Sea and living that high salinity in the water, which expose or pose a danger or an impact to the wildlife and fish at the Salton Sea itself. So the habitat values are being lost due to the high salinity. It's not the same as it used to be before, with when there was a time when we saw about 4,400 species of birds. We see, about, I'll say, roughly about 200 species now, and that's definitely a concern, additional to the potential public health impact that the shoreline represents of the Salton Sea. And also drought and water availability. That's another main concern. We heard a little bit about the multi-decade drought with the Colorado River and how the water, it's not ending at the sea. So that's definitely a concern and a challenge that we're faced, and that puts a sense of urgency to get our projects implemented. Okay, and I'll cover the 10-year plan. This plan was put together back in 2018. This is actually around the same time where this team was put together by the state. The Salton Sea Management Program was put together and developed this plan in collaboration with multiple partners and including community members as well, to help protect 30,000 acres of exposed lakebed around the Salton Sea, prioritizing the areas with the most emissive areas, pretty much where the sea was going to recede first. So this project, this plan includes different projects. In this presentation, I'll cover 2, which are active projects, and I'll briefly touch on others that are coming down as part of the 10-year plan. And beyond the 10-year plan, it was developed by draft long-range plan for the long-term vision of the Salton Sea. This was also put together in collaboration with different partners. The state put a what we call the long-range plan committee, comprised of, I'll say, about 35 different members of the community in the region, people that represented multiple agencies, the federal government, members of the community as well. So this plan was turned in December 2022, and it's now acting sort of a baseline for what's coming next with our federal partners, with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. This plan, it's not a specific project. It's not a specific strategy to follow. The draft long-range plan presented a list of concepts to be used or to be fully analyzed, or in a deeper analysis through this new study with our federal partners, which is called the Imperial Stream Salton Sea Feasibility Study. This study is on its very early stage, and it's under development, and it's going to have multiple opportunities for the public to be involved. This is where some of the projects that are looked into, it's the water importation projects and others that have been put forth to be looked into different or deeper analysis. Okay, and I'll briefly touch on 2 of our main projects that are active. Here we go. And before I talk about our projects, I want to make sure an important driver in order for the state to implement those projects, we rely on collaboration with our partners. The state, it's not really a significant owner at the state. The state owns a little less than 2% of the surrounding area of the Salton Sea, and what you see here in front of you, this kind of checkerboarded map, represents the multiple landowners at the sea. And we rely on the collaboration with them to be able to acquire access to the land and be able to help get those projects in place. And definitely that's a driver as far as on our timelines to be able to fully expedite the projects. Okay, and what you see here in front of you, it's a map that it's part of the 10-year plan. These are the projects that are either coming are occurring right now, which I'll touch on right now, or coming down the pipeline. These projects are led by the Salton Sea Management Program. However, there are a few that are being led by the Salton Sea Authority, by County of Riverside, and by County of Imperial as well. We also have a project with our partners with Audubon near the community of Bombay Beach. So they're different and multiple projects happening or in planning phases coming for the Salton Sea. This project, this is our first major project. This actually is located at the south end of the Salton Sea. It was actually just mentioned during public comment about this project. It's a 4,100 acre project with about a $206 million investment that is nearing completion for this 4,100 acres. And it's the state's major habitat project. meaning that there is actually water being used in this project to help improve the air quality or protect air quality, and of course provide a habitat for birds and fish at the Salton Sea. And of course, by having water and the soil, that will help reduce the emissions coming down to Playa. And I'll dive into a little bit of what's found in the actual project. What you see here in front of you, it's a causeway that was built actually into the Salton Sea. It's a little longer than a mile, and you see a platform at the tail end of this causeway. Actually, as of today, you will see 3 pumps of water, pumps that will pump water into the rest of the project. This picture was taken earlier this year, but now you see way more different. You will be able to see like actual power lines coming in to power those pumps. And this causeway actually, it's also a pipeline. Underneath this causeway, there is a 30-inch pipeline that goes into the project, south into the project. This is the same causeway that you see the power lines right now. That's a more recent picture coming south into the Salton Sea, and then eventually meeting the New River. Right here at the New River, we're actually starting right in the center of the New River where this infrastructure was built. This is what it's called the New River Diversion Structure. This is an engineered component that's crucial for this project. This will mix the water coming from the causeway or that saline pump station into this infrastructure here to mix the water. And the purpose of mixing the water is to achieve that level of salinity that will help support wildlife and fish, specifically for an endangered species called desert pupfish, which is, by the way, the only endemic fish at the Salton Sea. So that mixing of the water would allow us to control how much saline or not saline will like to have the water for that specific species, and therefore create or provide for the ecosystem at the Salton Sea. Okay, here's a couple of other features that are part of the same project, Species Conservation Habitat Project. What you see on your left, it's actually a loafing island. Just to kind of get some perspective or size of the project, you'll see a little construction truck in there. And this is one of about 13 or so islands about the same size. So just to give you some perspective of the actual size of the project. And to be honest with you, I know this pictures might do some justice, but once you're there, or if any of you or the audience have had a chance to be at this project, it's a pretty significant size of a project. And of course, investment that the state is doing right at the Salton Sea. What you see on the right, kind of like those two bluish lines that you see there, is just a different depth or more depth soil or hole per se. It's a dredge channel that will allow to provide refuge for desert pupfish as well. So there were different factors that play a role in this particular project. Okay, now I'll shift to these projects are actually occurring at 3 different locations. It's different. This does not require as much water as the previous project, and it's kind of broken into 3 different locations, 2 near the community of Salton City, which you see there as Clubhouse and Tuliwash, south and north of Salton City, and then West Bombay Beach. It's actually west to the community of Bombay Beach. So this project, perhaps you've seen pictures of, you've heard about it, or perhaps you've been there and seeing it. So first phase, the team brought in grass bells. The grass bells, what they do is provide a surface or engineer roughness to help slow down the winds that we get often here in the region. So by slowing down the wind, you help keep the dust down a little bit, not as if it would have water, but eventually, and on a second phase, we'll start bringing plants, and you see some of that happening on this same picture. Just to talk a little bit about the concept behind this, it's just like if there is no sort of all these little barriers in the land, you will have this high wind events, and once they're in there, it's not going to be completely gone. However, they're going to help protect and reduce the wind speed there. Okay, here are some pictures of the work that's being done there at this locations. And also worth mentioning that we do work with local nurseries to bring these plants. And also worth mentioning that these plants have been selected or have been put front by our partners with the Department of Fish and Wildlife as plants that could thrive in the current conditions of the Salton Sea, high salinity, little to no water. So those are some of the plants that brought in and harvested locally. Also another component or another piece that it's worth mentioning, it's the job creation. You see here some of the crew members that are helping bring those plants and seedlings into the project. The bigger bushes that you see there, actually they were out there already as part of that natural landscape, but they were bringing this smaller seedlings, actually placing pretty close to the existing one so they can also provide some protection there from the winds. And of course, as the name of the projects, help enhance the vegetation in this location. And this is a more recent picture. This is actually the recent rains by Storm Hillary. So this is what could have eventually looked like. This is actually a real picture at Clubhouse. So this is kind of the intention of the long for this project, for the plants to kind of outgrow the bells, and you'll see pretty much green out there. Okay, just to mention, I mentioned during the map, we do have a collaborative project with different partners, with Audubon leading the Audubon Bombay Beach Wetland Enhancement Project, the North Lake Pilot Demonstration Project, which was also mentioned in public comment, with County of Riverside, and the Salton Sea Authority, and the Desert Shores Channel Restoration Project. That's also with the Salton Sea Authority, with support from County of Imperial. So in these projects, the Salton Sea Management Program provides either technical assistance or funding, or there is some sort of collaboration in there happening, and are also part of the 10-year plan. Okay, other projects, just briefly, projects coming down the pipeline or planning phases. The team is considering an expansion of the SEH project. The first major habitat project that I mentioned has the potential to be expanded and almost double its size. So that's something that the team is looking into, contingent on funding, also the land ownership, and different factors that kind of play a role to see if we're able to move forward with that expansion. The North Lake Pilot Project, it's a bigger size of a project that's sort of the subsequent project out of the North Lake Pilot Demonstration Project. The other projects that are also part of the 10-year plan as well. And with that, I conclude my presentation. Here's the contact for the team. We actually have a monthly e-newsletter where we send updates on our projects, send out invitations to events that we got going on. So feel free to give us an email. And thank you all for your time, and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation, sir. The Salton Sea, we've been dealing with this thing for multiple years, and I appreciate the projects and that, but why wouldn't you just bring in water and fill it up and use the water to desalinate and use the water profits from desalinating it to either support San Diego or other places to pay for the bonds to do the water instead of all these projects that you're going to have to maintain, that, the hay bales, and that's all great, but without water, it's just going to shrink and shrink and shrink. And as you know, the settlement agreement with the water companies doesn't allow any potable water to be able to be utilized in it. So the only water you're going to get is from the New River and the other one coming in from Mexico that's contaminated. And I know you're desalinating that, but it just seems like if you put water in it, you'd be done with it. So I know it's expensive, but you're doing $205 million here, $400 million there, $10 million here. By the time you're all done trying to get it done, you're going to end up spending the money you would have done to put water in it anyways. But I'd just like to hear why it just didn't. So.
Yeah, so that's actually a great question, by the way. That's being considered as a part of the feasibility study. That's through the analysis that the federal government is doing. And it's not just the federal government, it's the Salton Sea Management Program, also the Salton Sea Authority. It's a local sponsor for that study. And they're going to look at a more sort of holistic approach of, actual engineer feasibility of that, the cost and analysis of potentially bringing water into the Salton Sea. It's worth saying also that as of today, there's zero funds allocated for long-term restoration, including water importation. So after this study it's completed, that will point out either a project or a series of strategies to help mitigate the potential impacts of the Salton Sea, and therefore everybody's going to start looking for funds and way to get resources for those particular projects or strategies.
And it is important. I mean, it will have an effect on all of us, not only here, but other parts of the region, San Diego, the Temecula area. So I do agree with that. But, with the water, like they're saying, the lithium's got to come in. You have 50,000 acre feet of water you're going to need to be able to utilize the lithium. And then at the same time, you have the geothermal plants that can use the power, because desalination is very power orientated, where you're using almost natural energy coming from the earth to be able to power the desalination plants. You can dump it right into the canal that goes down to Imperial and be done with it. So I'd like to see if we could do so. And I've been here for almost 40 years now. I'm dating myself. And we've been talking about this project. I think the only thing that we've been talking about longer is the Indian Canyon Road being fixed. So I do appreciate your work on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks so
Hernandez.
much.
Appreciate it. All right, let's see. And then we also have a presentation that's not on the agenda, but we have a proclamation for National Adoption Awareness Month, which is November 2023. So it says, whereas the City of Indio recognizes the importance of giving children safe, loving, and permanent families through adoption, and whereas more than 3,000 children in Riverside County are waiting for permanent families, and whereas the Larson Justice Center in Indio, California will open their doors on November 4th, 2023 to finalize adoption of local children and join other organizations to celebrate all adoptions. And whereas this effort, along with similar celebrations in all 50 states, will offer children the chance to live with stable and loving families and encourage other dedicated individuals to make a powerful difference in the lives of a child through foster care adoption. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Oscar Ortiz, Mayor of the City of Indio, along with the Indio City Council, do hereby proclaim November 4, 2023 as National Adoption Day in the City of Indio, and in so doing, all citizens to join in a national effort to raise awareness about the importance of foster care and adoption. And this proclamation will be delivered to the Larson Justice Center. Right. And we'll move on to our report from our Youth Advisory Council. We have Viviana Tarriquez.
Good evening, City Council members and Mayor Ortiz. My name is Viviana Tarriquez, and I am this year's Youth Advisory Council Secretary. Recently, YAC volunteered with Fine Food Bank at the First AME Church, where we passed out food, directed traffic, and helped our community members take their groceries to their cars. We also recently sold snow cones at the Desert Recreation District's annual Halloween Carnival. As we have mentioned in prior reports, we're currently having our fundraiser where we teamed up with Acrisure Arena to attend a Firebirds game. Tickets are available to purchase at the QR code, which is located in our YAC Instagram. All proceeds will be going to YAC, and we plan to use our funds to cover an attendance to a leadership conference.
Right, thank you for the report. And we'll move.
City manager, city attorney report.
Oh, yeah. City Attorney report on closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. No reportable action today.
All right. City Manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to report that our first Resident Leadership Academy completed this last week. So 22 of our dedicated Indio residents went through 7 classes, learning more about the community and the city operations, and they graduated. So we'll be sure to do this on at least an annual basis, and we'd also like to start one in Spanish as well. A reminder that we have our second Saturday event on the 11th of November, 6 p.m. here downtown. The barbecue festival is coming up. It will be at the golf course on Avenue 42. That's on the 18th, starting at 11 a.m. Saturday. The City Council is very well aware, and we're making the community aware of the library grant that was received by the community. It was also mentioned earlier this evening. So a $4.6 million grant to help us expand the new library that's planned. As many know, the existing library is currently closed, but we'll be opening up soon a storefront to be able to have children's reading and programs, be able to pick up books and other periodicals and so forth at that location until the new library is built. Yesterday as well, IID Board, the Imperial Irrigation District Board, approved our project agreements that will allow us to proceed with these very critical projects. And I'm sure some of you may want to speak to that, but we're very appreciative of the IID Board, staff, working with us, and very unique way for us to bring this much-needed infrastructure to the community. That's my report, Mayor.
Right, thank you. Move on to reports from City Council. Ms. Holmes, want to start us off?
Okay, absolutely. Good evening, and thank you, Mayor. Just to add on to that, I was part of that call with the IID board, and the tone of that entire meeting was very collegial, very collaborative. In fact, President Cardenas, said this is a historic moment. That's how he started that. We have all been working very, very hard on this. We've voted. We've really made tremendous strides in this relationship and what this means. As City Manager said, the project agreements were unanimously approved for Avenue 40 project, Northgate, Avenue 42, and the Dr. Carry-On plant. So we're moving in the right direction. The culture is an extremely positive one, and I think all the time that we've taken, and particularly a shout out to staff and City Manager and staff at IID, Jamie Asbury and her staff, for really making the effort to make this happen in a very positive way. So that was very exciting to be a part of that yesterday. All of my commissions were dark, so just a couple of other things. I attended a College of the Desert meeting with President Hope. There were about 25 people in attendance. Again, another positive meeting as we learned the direction of College of the Desert here in Indio, what it means, what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. And really discussing some of the issues. It was very, very well attended meeting, and very excited to see College of the Desert progress and open, as well as a Child Development Center. Part of Charter Communications, some know as Spectrum, it's up here on Avenue 45. They're a company, a large corporate company that employs quite a few people here in the city of Indio. They gave a check and invited me to be part of a check presentation of $5,000 to the Indio Apostolic Church. So they have a program where monthly staff and the employees can submit a request for this grant. It's not really a grant, it's a donation that Charter gives out for certain entities. And a local employee from Charter who attends services at Apostolic really saw what they were doing. Food banks, really reaching out to their people, the neighborhoods, and really trying to do a lot for the community. So it was really nice to be a part of a really large, really exciting, really community-oriented organization such as the Apostolic Church of Indio. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Councilmember Furman.
Thank you, Mayor. All of my boards and commissions were dark, but I also attended the College of the Desert, speaking with the new president. Very promising to see where our colleges continue to move. And there were some questions and concerns about the parking for our downtown campus, and we're still working with the college on getting sufficient parking for the new development. But I did have some concerns going on in the city. I could ask the city manager or even maybe the chief. I do sit on the CVAG Homelessness Committee, and we hadn't met yet, but I tend to bring this up during our commission meeting. I've seen a new influx of transients coming into the city, and encampments sprouting up around the city. And for the folks who work in nonprofits or faith-based communities, or the folks who have their boots on the ground, they know pretty much who our folks are, our homeless folks at the parks or in some of the areas. We kind of know who our folks are, but we're seeing a lot of folks come in, and the public doesn't sometimes understand that our hands are tied in some facets of working with folks who refuse services. We do have a lot of resources in our community. We have a lot of folks out there trying to help from a lot of different organizations, but sometimes folks refuse. And with that influx of folks coming into our city, I'm seeing more people on some of the islands asking for money and some of the corners, and it's not so much that they're transits, it's also dangerous. I've myself driven Monroe, and I've almost hit folks and, you know, crossing the streets. It's dark, you know, they're wearing dark clothing. I don't know what can we do about the folks hanging out on the islands on some of our major streets. Maybe it's something that, along with the homelessness committee and our community service, we could start working with community service and some of the services we have here to try to work with some of those folks to get them assistance, because it is very dangerous. At the same time, we want to get those folks assistance. And I also like to ask the city manager to maybe bring to us or consider looking at some sort of pilot program with speed cameras on Indio Boulevard. Right now, it's kind of a speedway out there sometimes, and you know, sometimes it's hard with enforcement with enough officers. You know, but I think if we look at speed cams on Indio Boulevard, I think that would help with that problem. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Furman. Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of my committees were active. One was the waste transfer JPA we have with the city of Coachella. What it is the transfer station. We take our solid waste from Burtec and they transfer it over there, and then they move it out to where it needs to go as they separate it. We're looking at a contract that's ending very shortly, so we're looking at purchasing the facility there and expanding it because of the size of the city of Indio and the growth of Coachella, and to be able to utilize it and get the best cost we can to be able to keep our hauling services down to a minimum. And at the same time, when we negotiated our contract last time, everybody pays a $1 a ton fee to the Conservation Commission, which is here in the CV, to purchase land. We did not negotiate that when we signed our contract with the County of Riverside, so the city of Coachella and Indio we did not agree right now to go forward with that, so we're going to bring that back and look at it because we feel the mayor of Coachella, Steve Hernandez, and myself and a couple of the other members were not there. One of the members wasn't there, and one of the other members was non-complacent on it, wasn't sure, is we didn't sign it, so should we pay it when we're expanding our growth? We pay a $2,100 tump fee now to go ahead and pay for transfer of land to the conservation now, and we felt that the city of Indio and Coachella are paying their fair share already, so we'll look into that. Then secondly, Sunline Transit Agency, we rechanged our sundial. For those people who don't know, we have the regular bus, then sundials for people that need assistance that can't ride in a regular bus. There was a cancellation policy where if they didn't cancel within a certain amount of time, they weren't able to ride the bus for a certain period of time. We set that aside so that it would be coordinated with an appeal for 60 days so people could continue that needed the service to be able to use their bus. And then we are also going out to bid on legal services. We will be looking at an RFP to go out for new legal services for Sunline Transit Agency. And then the last thing is I was able to go to the visit Greater Palm Springs Visitors Bureau. Their hospitality awards, Bianco Nolasco from Empire Polo Club is one of the ones being honored. We also had Hampton Inn was honored, along with Fantasy Springs, and then CV Barbecue. So congratulations to the 4 honorees from the city of Indio, and it was a great opportunity to see the hospitality industry from all over the valley get recognized for all they do, especially the people behind house that you don't notice, the ones that are the cooks and the cleaners and everybody else. It was an opportunity for us to say thank you to them. And then Veterans Day is coming up, so on the same day we have our second Saturday. Please continue to support your veterans. Thank them for all the freedoms we have, our active duty military and our first responders who continue to keep us safe. That is on the 11th. There'll be some Veterans Day events throughout the valley, including the city of La Quinta and Palm Springs Air Museum and the George Patton Museum, to name a few. There's a few others also, so please do that. And then lastly, I'd like to ask the city manager if we can get an update on our animal control with the County of Riverside. Getting quite a few complaints from a lot of individuals that say they're calling the county for dead dogs and other animals that maybe have been hit and put on the side of the road. They're calling and being told that it's a weekend or something else that they're not going to pick them up. I know we just gave them a raise not too long ago to help them shore up the contract we had with them. I really like to hear what their services is and what they're doing to help support our animals and our residents to make sure that we're getting our quality of dollars from the county of Riverside. I'm sure in the next contract, they're going to be coming back looking for more money, and I'd like to make sure that we're getting what we're supposed to be getting, and that if our residents are calling, especially on something like that, that there is an opportunity for them to go out and pick that up, because we're supposed to have extra patrols. That was kind of one of the things we paid for, so if that's okay with the rest of the council, I'd appreciate it. And that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't have any committees, but I wanted to just bring forward that we all received a letter from our appointment to the Palm Springs Airport Commission. I'm not sure if any of us responded to that. It was a very good update on a lot of great things happening at the Palm Springs International Airport, which is going to increase flight opportunities not only for us who live in the region, but for others who want to come in. So I don't know if we need to officially respond to his letter or if anybody did. I guess just thank him on behalf of the council that we do acknowledge the work he's doing, and we thanked him for the update. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Last week I had the opportunity to join representatives from the Department of Labor for a panel in Kansas City where we discussed our planning for a residential solar program for our region and how that could impact our workforce. I then flew to Washington, D.C. to join representatives from the Torres Martinez tribe and the Kachan tribe, as well as representatives from Audubon and Kyle Wild to advocate for the Chuckwalla National Monument at Capitol Hill. I learned about the significance of these lands to some of our local tribes. These areas contain ancient artifacts and trails that were used for thousands of years for trading and migrating through the region. This area is also part of the creation story for our local Torres Martinez tribe and holds special significance for our neighbors there. I offered some insight on the importance of conserving these lands as it affects our local wildlife, our local air quality, our opportunities for outdoor recreation, and our economy. I also want to thank our staff for their hard work on getting us this new grant for our library for over $4 million, and thank our state partners for their help in providing this funding for our community, which will allow us to expand our new library project. I also want to thank our staff and our partners at Assemblymember Garcia's office for working with Caltrans to figure out a solution for our Avenue 44 crossing. I'm glad to say we now have a plan moving forward for a 4-lane bridge with bike lanes and sidewalks for Avenue 44. I also want to remind everyone to join us every Friday from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. here in downtown for our Food Truck Fridays, and we now also have our Harvest Market hosted by CV Harvest Box every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. here in downtown Indio. Saturday, sorry. Thanks. And we'll move on to our next item. We have an appointment of David Getka to the Mobile Home Fair Practices Commission, nominated by Councilmember Elaine Holmes.
He's not present. He is not present. He's already, we've already approved him for the sustainability, and he was very, very much interested in being involved with the city, so he threw his hat in the ring, and I'd like to have your support to appoint him to the Mobile Home Fair Practices Commission.
Did we change that policy that they can serve on 2 boards?
With this case of the Mobile Home Fair Practices, yes.
Okay, thanks.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion
All right,
from Councilmember Miller and a second for Mayor Pro Tem Ramos Hamid. Let's go ahead and vote. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. And then would our Youth Advisory Council like to be excused? Or would you like to stay around?
I don't know.
What's that?
We'll stay for a second.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
I think it's 50-50.
All right, we'll move on to our consent calendar. Is there any items anyone would like to pull?
If no one wishes to pull any items, I'll make a motion to pass the consent calendar as is.
We have a motion from Councilmember
Second.
Furman and a second from Mayor Pro Tem Ramos Hamid. Let's go ahead and vote. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. We'll move on to item 12.1, resolution number 10400, adoption of the City of Indio Pro-Housing Plan. Sabdi, do you want to do public comments first or after? Okay, we'll do it after. The presentation first. Go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening. Jesus Gomez, Housing and Neighborhood Services Manager. Back in July, our Director of Community Development, Kevin Snyder, was here and presented the city's proposed pro-housing plan. In that same item, we also discussed the designation through the state through a program that rewards cities for being a pro-housing city. And at that time, there were questions that came up, really good questions from the council. And at that time, the items were not approved because there were questions. We did provide answers to those questions last week. Hopefully, we answered all the questions. We are here to just briefly give you an overview of those both items. This one is the pro-housing plan, and the next agenda item would be that designation discussion. The pro-housing plan is a strategic plan that hopes to address through recommendations to the council, this council and future council staff in the community on how to address the impacts of the housing crisis. We all know that that's a big thing now. We're all impacted by it. Here as a housing manager, community members that are impacted by that, and so I'm proud to be able to present this plan that the council has heard us discuss in the past. We also have our consultants on board here. I think they're on standby to answer any further questions. But it's a roadmap on how to address the housing crisis, and I hope that you support the plan, and I'm here to answer questions.
All right. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Gomez, did this change in any way from the last time it was presented to us? I know you sent us answers, but did this document change?
So the document didn't change. Obviously, we changed it where it's now a November 2023 plan. I think one of the concerns that the council had, and again, good concerns, was what level of commitment are we making with this standalone plan? And what we talked about then, and we're saying again now, is what we present are just recommendations that the council in the future can consider. It doesn't commit the council to, or the city to, any action specifically. For example, the use of general funds, for example, is still in there. Again, that is something that the council can consider given situations in the future, but it does not commit at any point any resources.
I guess I don't like the word prioritize, because that's not what we said.
Well,
I mean, we'll consider it, but that's the word we said. We won't prioritize, so that needs to be changed.
I think the language that we use it's a little bit, it's kind of like may prioritize type of thing. I mean, I have to look at the document. We can definitely take another look at it and make it clear that these are options, so we could revisit how we word it.
Yeah, I mean, the policies are options, but don't put prioritize there. So I would just make that amendment if
Consider general funds for affordable housing?
Yeah, we would.
Do you think we'll still be able to get the points if we change that wording?
And this is precisely why we split up the two items. This is just a plan, and so this doesn't go into the points scoring. I do have a discussion or a presentation on that particular scoring of that application.
Gotcha.
If you want to, wait for that discussion on the next item.
Yeah, but is it the same wording in that?
No, actually, in that next item, there is no mention of the general plan.
General funds?
General funds, I'm
Okay.
sorry, yes.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, it's a standalone document.
Gotcha.
It's just a strategic plan, whereas the other one, we are committed to implementing the things we say we would do in the application. I think Councilmember Miller had those questions. It's a little bit of confusing what we're committing to. And so this one, we don't commit to any resources. The next one, we would, yes, as I will explain.
Would all other council members be okay with that word change there?
I certainly would. I mean, I think the city of Indio is really playing a strong role in being pro-housing just in and of itself. I think we have over 1,000 units. I think it's our goal and our vision to provide affordable housing. However, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem's comment. I think we just need to take things on a case-by-case basis, and I'm not sure that the use of prioritizing is really a necessary description.
I'm okay with that change, so. Yeah. Any other requests for this side of it? Okay. We do have a public comment for 12.1 and 12.2. Sorry, we have Jessica Pollard.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. First, for 12.1, my name is Jessica Pollard. I'm the Senior Policy Analyst at Lift to Rise. And on behalf of the organization, I strongly support the approval of Resolution number 10400, adopting the City of Indio's pro-housing plan with minor adjustments to the proposed policy implementations. Together with over 70 cross-sector partners, including the City of Indio, Live to Rise has coordinated a shared goal of reducing the regional housing cost burden at a population level through the production of 10,000 units of affordable housing in the Coachella Valley by 2028. And approval of this plan will aid in attaining that goal. There are many undeniable benefits to obtaining a pro-housing designation and to being one of the first cities in the Coachella Valley to do so. Historically, our region has struggled to compete with resources that support affordable housing production, and a pro-housing designation for Indio would benefit the region at large. It would give the city preference when participating in some state-funded programs like the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities grant, an infill infrastructure grant, transformative climate communities, and a new pro-housing incentive pilot program. Live to Rise has been actively involved with helping cities in their housing element and obtaining the pro-housing designation, and giving our strong connection with and relationship with the California's housing and community development. We've been able to identify policies and practices eligible for Coachella Valley jurisdictions in the pursuit of a pro-housing designation, such as Category 4 and Category 2 on the pro-housing designation application. All of which overlap with the work that Live to Rise is currently doing in partnership with other cities. We applaud and are grateful for the City of Indio and your leadership in pursuing this very important designation, and would also encourage the city to adjust its policy recommendation number 1 to contribute to the already regionally established We Live Coachella Valley Housing Catalyst Fund, instead of establishing a new housing trust fund as proposed. Our Housing Catalyst Fund is an innovative regional investment tool meant to catalyze many stalled projects across the Coachella Valley while recycling funds back into the community to address the affordable housing needs. We urge the City Council to direct staff to prepare and complete the application, and would appreciate the opportunity to consider, together with Live to Rise, our Housing Collaborative Action Network, and members of the other Valley jurisdictions, on how to leverage the city's application in a way that strengthens housing production across the region. And that's for both of them.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Sabri, do we have any other public comments?
No, Mayor, not for that item.
All right. Do you have any other questions for 12.1?
Yeah, just a quick one, Jesus. So if we change the word priority, and I don't think the city council is against putting money into a project if it's the right thing to do, one-time funds maybe from our, Measure E or one of the other opportunities we have, but it doesn't prioritize it in terms of how we got it set up. And Ms. Pollard talked about the fund. So this fund that we're going to create, if we're going to do it, will just be for Indio, right? Just us and our housing needs here?
Correct.
And how much leverage will we have so that we don't have another issue like the one on Highway 111 and Jefferson? There's nothing wrong with the actual project itself. It's just in the wrong location. 3 stories overlooking next to the road, overlooking other people's backyard is not what I would classify as a good project to me, but it's there and it's up what it is, and we needed the 489 units. But is there a way that when we are prioritizing this and we're getting some of this funding that we might have a little bit more say of where these projects go?
Good evening, council members. For the record, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. This is starting to veer into the land use arena, so I thought I'd pop in for a second. So council member, it's a great question. So certainly the city council, if you choose to create that housing fund, and Live to Rise's Catalyst Fund is an option for you to consider as an alternative to creating a City of Indio operated fund. The council, in considering how to utilize those funds and apply them to projects, can certainly take into considerations the location of the project, the nature of the project. That is the council's prerogative. What this fund will do, whether it's standalone Indio or participation in the Catalyst Fund, is provide another leveraging opportunity to help in bringing affordable housing to the community. As the council is well aware, affordable housing competes in a very competitive environment statewide, and the Coachella Valley is often not always the highest priority for receiving those funds. So it does not in any way limit the council's ability to direct how those funds be used, to the nature of the projects that be used, but the plan itself will give the council, as noted by Mr. Gomez, a strategic blueprint for how to go forward and how to utilize funds and or make policy decisions.
Thank you.
And I might just add to that, because it might also help answer your question. If there's some funding to consider, not to prioritize, to consider for a project, if you don't like the location, you may say, well, we're not going to provide the funding. However, as you're well aware, the state has preempted almost all of your land use authority. So the very site you referred to, it could be that this council decides you don't provide money, financing to assist it, but it still would have been located there, just as a clarification.
The city manager makes an excellent point. There has been a lot of usurping of local authority as it relates to affordable housing. So that project actually received an alternate funding mechanism through another state financing mechanism. So the city's participation in that instance financially would have not necessarily mattered. So as the city manager pointed out, that project could have gone forward no matter what.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I just want to make sure if we're using this funding and we have more of a say where it goes. I'm all for affordable housing, workforce housing, whatever you want to call it. I just want to make sure it's put in the proper place so it doesn't infringe on the rights of other people and make sure it's not a safety concern. I mean, the project itself is sound, 489 units. The location, to me, is a little sketchy. So, but like you said, it was preempted on what we could do. So appreciate it. Thank you.
I just feel like we're mixing apples and oranges here, so I want to try to wrap my head around this a little bit. So clearly this documentation, this information says it doesn't require us, it does not directly commit city resources, but we may choose to commit funds either to Lift to Rise, or most likely I would potentially, possibly support, monies from general funds or somewhere else for this. But with these funds, whatever funds we may choose, if we choose to pass this is not going to stop building 3-story places on Jefferson that are, maybe not as visually pleasing to some people, correct? And so this purpose of this application is to say, do we want to look even more seriously than we already are? Because I don't think I think it was mentioned, Mr. Gomez, that we're the only one that is considering or might have this designation in the Coachella Valley. Personally, I think affordable housing needs to be something that the entire valley embraces, and not just one city. But that's a separate conversation. If we choose to embrace this, really what it's saying is we could use certain funds on certain housing. We'll get points, or we'll have, what does it say, potentially, grant funds of up to $500,000 to use in an affordable housing project. Am I close?
I think the $500,000 is the start of it.
Right.
That's that's where you start off with, but then there's other grants that are possible after that will get prioritized.
Okay.
And some of those are very large too, like the TCC.
Right, and Mayor and Council, if I could step back for a second. The agenda item before you is just the adoption of the pro-housing plan. Whether or not the City Council decides to approve the next agenda item, the pro-housing plan is literally the next step in the work you've already done on the housing element. It really kind of finesses and goes into a higher level of detail of the actions that this city could take, this City Council or future City Council could take to be more supportive of not only affordable housing, but all types of housing in the city. So I just want to distinguish that, because right now the action before you is the pro-housing plan. Whether or not you take action, if you take positive action on the pro-housing plan and adopt that through this resolution number 10400, and you choose not to adopt resolution 10401, you still have a pro-housing plan that will give guidance to staff, future City Council, and community members on how we're going to continue to attack the housing need and the housing diversity that we are attempting to promote in our community.
Gotcha.
Okay, good.
The only discussion I have, and maybe it's for the next item, is really having a robust conversation about this fund. I think one of the concerns is the funds that we generate or we have in Indio, we'd like them to stay in Indio. We're the biggest city in the valley. We have the biggest workforce, and we have the biggest need for affordable housing. So I think there's concern there. But other than that, if there's no other comments, I'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to just add another friendly amendment. On policy 1, it could be establish or participate in a local housing trust. Leave it open to the
Yeah,
future.
I agree with that.
And those are my only 2 friendly amendments.
And I'm fine with both of them, so, exactly what Mayor Pro Tem said. And I'll make a recommendation to approve resolution number 10400, adopting the City of Indio pro-housing plan.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Furman and a second from Councilmember Miller. Let's go ahead and vote. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. We'll move on to item 12.2, authorizing the preparation and submittal of the application for participation in the state's pro-housing designation program. Go ahead, Mr.
Jesus again. Jesus Gomez, Housing and Neighborhood Services Manager. So thank you for approving the plan. That's, as Kevin mentioned, that's step 1 or the next step. Now we can get into some of the questions regarding the fund, and I think I'd like to clarify a few things regarding, the 500,000 that we've talked about, last time that we're here and was just mentioned, and also really the funding potential that can come to the city through that program to assist actual projects that could be either implemented by developers or by the city or in combination thereof. So it's 2 different things. So just quickly for the public, so the state does have the pro-housing designation program, which if a city receives that designation, the city and developers in the community would be eligible to receive bonus points per se when applying for state and other types of funding. Some of these funders want to see that there's active involvement in communities and the city showing that it's a pro-housing city and having a plan. It only helps with that effort. Again, it's a way that we could secure funds for projects here in Indio. The 500,000 is kind of like an initial bonus that the state awards cities and communities that receive that designation. I think in the memorandum that was provided, we said that there are certain uses. One of the questions the council had last time was, can that 500,000 be used for public infrastructure projects? The answer in that memo was no. It could only be used to support direct housing programs and be provided here in Indio. That's again that just bonus funding for applying, for being some of the first ones to apply. Eventually, that money will not be available possibly for future entities that receive the designation. But like I said, the real benefit to the community through this program is to be able to secure hopefully millions of dollars that would not have otherwise been awarded to applicants here, again, the city or developers here in the city. And so that's really where the bulk of the benefit will come, obviously, ultimately, providing housing to all types of households here. So this application, I do have, you have this one here? Okay. I didn't bring my glasses, so I'm going to pull up the printed version. Because there were questions about the scoring of the application, so I kind of summarized that in the next slide. I know it's quite dense there. But what I want to point out is that of the application points, even last time that we were here, of the 30 points that are needed to successfully score and receive the designation, 30 points are needed. We were at 26, and at 24, I'm sorry, with 6 more points needed to get the remaining minimum threshold points that were required. And here I do identify the different categories that the state looks at. It looks at zoning, the efforts to make development more affordable here to encourage housing, ways to increase or speed up the processing of permits, and also to see how we can finance programs. Those are the 4 categories in general that the application asks us, scores us on. And so as you can see, the 13 and 11 points were gained, or the 24 points were gained from things that we have already done. I think, Mayor, you had asked, what are we getting and how much are we committing just to get this designation? And by just the points themselves, 80% of the points that in this application we've already done through update of our general plan, our downtown specific plan, Highway 111 corridor plans, our housing element that we just adopted. All those things in those helped us score those 80% of the applications. The additional 6 points that are needed are outlined here by points. So for example, and these are things that we've already even mentioned, I think some of them in our housing element implementation program. So Mayor, to your question last time is, it's not much that we have to put into this to get that designation in our belief. The state Housing and Community Development Department would still have to review the application. There's still a back and forth if they have questions. If they don't like what we believe there was 2 points on an application, they can come back and we can negotiate and barter as needed to get those thresholds. The state is very supportive. They want us to get that designation. And so this application does commit us, whatever we put in that plan, that we have to implement within a 2-year period. We did remove from there the use of general funds. That's one thing that we had that would have gained us points. It was just 1 point. We removed that and we made it up with something else. And so at this point, I mean, I think we'd like to move forward with your approval to submit the application.
Right. Any questions here?
I have a question. How do we potentially credit temp fee reduction?
Yeah, well, what I mean by that, you know, I wrote that.
Well, everybody's standing.
Oh, okay. You know what? Yeah.
Let me jump in if
No,
I could.
I'd have to potentially credit
we don't
temp
have to
fee.
actually do that. Our friends at CVAG have already taken care of that for us. They actually have a program for affordable housing. So we can actually, so to speak, ride some coattails. So in that regard, I think that's one. And then and the other items that Jesus, I'll invite him back up. So the city really doesn't have to do much in that regard. We are part of CVAG, the board, which the city is represented on, has previously taken action to help address the affordable housing need through a different fee consideration.
Good, thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Right. Good.
I mean, I appreciate the work that's gone into this, and I appreciate the council stepping out and making some bold decisions and actually displaying our commitment to bring affordable to our residents here. So I'd like to make the recommendation to adopt resolution number 10401, authorizing the submittal of an application or participation in the state's pro housing designation program.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Furman and a second from Mayor Pro Tem. Let's go ahead and vote. Motion passes 5-0. And thank you, Mr. Gomez, for the report, and thank you for clarifying everything. You know, all of our questions were very clear today, and you made it very clear what steps we had to take to get to that point. So appreciate your hard work. Thanks. Now we're going to move on to item 12.3, authorizing a 1-year extension of the design review approval for Citrus Plaza 2, Planning Area 2.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. So this evening, the City Council is being asked to consider a design review extension. A few weeks ago, we did this for another project, and we're back again. And the reason why is that the council smartly and I think with foresight took action several years ago during the COVID pandemic crisis to extend previous entitlements both for conditional use permits and design reviews to allow developers additional time as we all navigated through that uncertain time. So this particular developer you should be well familiar with. They have developed what is now called Canopy at Citrus, but back in the entitlement phase was called Citrus Plaza 2. This is the development that is northeast of Avenue 50 and Jefferson Street. This is where if you've had the opportunity to have dinner at Cork and Fork or get some pizza at the pizzeria there, or do your banking at the banking institution there. There are a variety of new commercial businesses that have developed there. That was phase 1 of Citrus Plaza, or Canopy at Citrus. Phase 2 was a project that was conceived of as a add-on to the overall village atmosphere of this entire development, which is approximately 9 acres. So the area highlighted with the hatching is about 3.3 acres, and it was proposed for market rate multifamily apartment dwellings. And that project went through the entitlement process. following the adoption of the specific plan for Citrus Plaza, and then obviously for the Phase 1 entitlement, which got built, that the Phase 2 came and got entitled, and that was in July of 2021. As you're well aware, the Phase 1 with the existing commercial has been developing out over the last several years. And as a result of the energy and attention on that and lingering impacts of COVID and changes in the financial markets, the developer has asked for consideration of a one-year extension of their design review approval for Phase 2 so that they are able to focus on that. They are winding down. If you've been out there lately, you see there's one building left that they're working on, and they're winding down their activities on Phase 1 and are ready to start their activities on Phase 2. And again, Phase 2 is eight buildings with 62 dwelling units and associated amenities, as well as covered and uncovered parking. So this kind of shows you the location on the site. Jefferson is to the south on this picture, and the area highlighted in the box is the Phase 2 for the multifamily development. The image to the right is a rendering that was presented during the Planning Commission process that shows you the overall character and architecture of this development. So this evening, staff is recommending that the council approve ordinance number 1801, granting that one-year extension from December 31st, 2023 to December 2024. And we're doing this again by ordinance because the previous action that you took to extend was by ordinance, and following consultation with our city attorney, the prudent and legal method to extend these design reviews was through an ordinance action. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I believe the applicant is also available virtually if you have any questions for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Any questions here?
So expand on focus. Expand on focus on this area. I mean, to give a one-year extension, there has to be some.
Right. So what are they going to do?
What are they going to do?
Okay, fair question. So certainly the applicant give you the detail, but they've been winding down and their activities on Phase 1. They have been exploring different financing options for Phase 2. Obviously, the financial conditions are different from several years ago, and they are going to be looking at how to best finance this project. And so they will begin to turn their focus and energy. At this point in conversations with the applicant, that is their plan. If you want level of detail, Mayor Pro Tem, I can certainly invite them on to give you that information. But I would say that they're at the early stages of that focus, but they have an interest and a desire to bring this project forward to kind of complete the overall nature and vision of the project. But I believe they are available. Mr. Lichter and, okay, they are not. All right, my apologies. They were supposed to be on. But with that, I do know that they are very committed. I think you saw that energy and effort. The one thing Mr. Lichter, who is the developer, said to me is that the financing has proven to be challenging. Certainly, financing was different for Phase 1 than Phase 2. The nature of the project, because it's multifamily, is different than commercial. But he feels confident and committed that they will be able to find their financing. They had already done work on the construction drawings, but they put that on hold to finish out their energy and efforts on Phase 1.
Right, thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead and
I'm ready to make a motion, absolutely. I'd like to approve ordinance number 1801, authorizing a one-year extension of the design review approval from December 31st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024 for Citrus Plaza 2, Planning Area 2, DR 21-04-488, comprised of approximately 3.38 acres on a portion of land with a current assessor's parcel number designation of 602-090-006, located northeast of Avenue 50 and Jefferson Street.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion from Councilmember Holmes and a second from Councilmember Miller. Let's go ahead and vote. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. And we'll go on to item 12.4, amending Title 9, Chapter 101, related to enforcement of the City of Indio's prohibition on dangerous fireworks.
Thank you, Mayor. Stephen Graham, City Attorney. I'll be presenting this item. Based on the direction that the City Council gave at the last meeting, we have revised the proposed amendments to the fireworks ordinances to maintain the allowances for safe and sane fireworks in the City of Indio. We've made a few changes. I'll outline them. They are underlined in the backup if you want to see them specifically. On page 192, consistent with recent changes in state law, we have suggested an amendment to the fee that is paid by those entities that sell safe and sane fireworks in the city to go from a $250 per year fee to 7% of gross receipts, which is the amount allowable by law. That is limited to specific uses within the city, including public education and awareness about fireworks, fire operation and suppression efforts related to safe and sane fireworks, as well as inspection and enforcement. The other change that we are recommending you can find on page 156, which is, this authority I believe already exists within the fire code, but we're going to make sure that we have explicit authority within our code so that any enforcement official in the city would have the authority to remove and cause to remove, disposed of in an appropriate manner, explosive materials or fireworks that are being offered for sale illegally. Now, that's going to be something that we're going to talk about internally, right? Want to make sure that people who are doing this are trained. Oftentimes, illegal fireworks, dangerous fireworks, you don't know what the composition of those fireworks are. So oftentimes they're treated as explosives. They're detonated in place. And storage of them on city property is particularly worrisome. So we're going to be working on those internally, but we wanted to have clear authority to handle that. Additionally, we updated the fine schedule. So these are for violations of the Indio Municipal Code. I did want to point out that there are recent changes in state law to the Health and Safety Code, specifically Section 12700, that ups total fines depending on the amount of illegal dangerous fireworks that are in your possession. You could be looking at fines of up to $100,000. Those are for violations of state law. These are for violations of our ordinance. So we're recommending $2,000 for the first violation, $3,000 for a second, and $5,000 for each additional year. This is when it relates to dangerous fireworks only. Any other violation, we're recommending remain at $1,000 per violation. And then we included language based on a request of the mayor at the last meeting to include an ability to pay determination. And so essentially if you're on public assistance or if your verifiable income is below 125% of the poverty guidelines, civil penalties are limited to 20% of the amount that we discussed above. So instead of a $2,000 fine, that would be a $400 fine. Still significant for a person at 125% of the poverty level in our area. And then the city may also require that that individual do community service in lieu of paying all or part of the fine. That's consistent with other ability to pay determinations that exist in other jurisdictions, including for fireworks, but also for other violations of administrative civil penalties. That's optional. Any of these changes is optional. That's why I wanted to list them all individually. If there's anything in particular you want to get rid of, it's very easy to simply make a motion to not include that particular provision. That concludes my presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation, Stephen. I'm not a big fan of ability to pay.
Right.
I think if you do the crime, it should be equal because your ability to pay, yes, it's that, but it's more of an incentive not to do it. I mean, if it's a fine and you do something wrong, it's a year in jail, you shouldn't get time off because you're of any other circumstances. You did the crime, and that's how it should be. That's my personal opinion. I think it should be fair and even for all, no matter what it is. So I'm against that. Secondly, City Manager, is there a chance that before we get into this, we pay a big amount to the fire department, and we should bring in some of the fire marshals and some of the other people 3 or 4 days earlier. I'd rather spend $50,000 going out with police officers and our fire marshals who have jurisdiction because it's under the fire code, and go out and service the area and start to lay the groundwork well before 4th of July so that they understand that we're coming, so that people realize that we're not playing around, that we're going to be able to find people, we're going to be able to move stuff, show us a sign of force going out there, so maybe they'll think twice about doing it again, because word of mouth goes very quickly in this valley, and especially in this city. So I think it's good that we actually put it out there and have a plan in place that we are going to have our fire marshals out there. They will have the ability to be able to see that. We also have our public safety, and you're going to be able to get a fine up to $1,000 or up to multiple things based on what you are, and so think twice before you do it. I think we need to put our money where our mouth is and go out there and do it, and maybe we can reduce it, but we've got to have a plan coming up 2 weeks before it, and telling people, we need to tell them now, because it is a detriment to the people that are doing it safely, but it's also a detriment to the people that have PTSD, have animals and other stuff. So I think we need to think twice if we're going to keep this going.
Yeah, and I know it has been discussed between police and fire. It will be a true partnership between both, no matter how this ordinance shakes out. As any citation authority, so we've got code enforcement officers, we should have other staff out there as well, may not have citation authority. It's a beautiful song. But we can all be out there and making sure that presence is known. Back to the public education component, which is a part of what's allowed in these new revenues, would be part of our marketing public information team to let people know we will take it seriously. I know it may sound a little bit like a tattletale. I know other successes, communities with other success have encouraged neighbors anonymously to give us information that I know it's that house every year so that we can target some of the enforcement and we can arrive and perhaps witness that type of illegal behavior. So there are a lot of ways to make sure we get this done, but public education is certainly part of that.
I appreciate that because I think safe and sane fireworks, that we're going to continue to have them, and it's the bad actors that are bringing in illegal fireworks. I think if we go out there and then we actually publicize it, that yes, we wrote 10 tickets and we'll write another 100 tickets if you're not going to follow the rules, because we allow safe and sane fireworks for the enjoyment of our community. But if you're coming into the city of Indio, they got to be safe and sane. If not, expect us to be there and give you a ticket. And that way, at least they know we're coming and that we're serious about what we're doing. If not, then we need to readjust. We need to relook at it. If we're not going to put the investment in it and it's going to have a detriment, then we do need to look at it. So thank you.
And council member, you know, a lot of the public awareness, like the city manager mentioned, if you pay through the fee, there's also been a growing number who are, you know, buy local. If you buy them in Indio, then you know that they're safe and sane because they have license that way, as opposed to going outside the jurisdiction, buying them from who knows where. So, you know, there may be sort of a little bit of a benefit to doing it that way as well. Thank you.
Did we include the change where the homeowner can be cited for it?
So that already exists in the existing
gotcha.
ordinance.
Got it.
We didn't need to update that portion.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. I agree. If somebody can cough up the money to go buy illegal fireworks, they get to pay 100% of the fine. I do not in any way, shape, or form agree with an ability to pay. My thought and concern, I mean, in an ideal world, safe and sane fireworks would be cool. I grew up with safe and sane fireworks. It was a fun family thing. But over the years, we've not been able to wrap our arms around determining which were safe and sane, even though there's criteria, and which weren't. And so therefore, we haven't been able to achieve any great effect of managing this. And City Manager, I heard what you said, but I guess after all these years, I'm still a little concerned that we have the ability to go out there and get the folks that are shooting off fireworks, that are causing issues, that potentially are causing harm, that are not safe and sane. And so my thought process was, if there are no fireworks, then every fireworks, if there are no safe and sane, then every firework in the community is illegal, and so then we can go after them. So somebody's got to tell me unequivocally that if we do safe and sane, that we can go out and find the folks that are not doing safe and sane and find them and do whatever we need to do to make sure that they're punished to the full extent of the law.
Well, to speak upon, on behalf of fire and police, certainly there are going to be instances when it will be confusing. There will be a call out, we will arrive, and it may be a safe and sane firework that made some noise and created some fervor, right? It's unfortunate because that would be a wasted effort, but it will happen. So I guess the quickest response is we tried. The last city council meeting, we made the recommendation that it would be much easier in this overall effort if they were all banned, but the majority of the council felt otherwise. So now we're on to the next step. Okay, it's time for us to find the most aggressive way to go after those that are outside of that safe and sane network. It will dilute a little bit of our capacity to make that determination, but some of them, they're just flat out obvious. We've all heard them. It's the, you know, the M80s, the Roman candles, the firecrackers. The wasted effort that will take place from time to time is unfortunate, but I think that's the legislative action that was taken at the last meeting, was to allow safe and sane and focus on the others.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, I think also if we don't have the inability to pay, I think we should reduce the first time fine, just because, you know, it could be somebody that's buying $200 worth of fireworks, and then we're going and fining them $2,000.
They shouldn't buy them in the first place.
Well,
It's
do
illegal.
they know that they have illegal fireworks?
I'm sorry, they're going down to the border, or they're going down to Vegas, Pahrump, wherever you get them, you know. It doesn't say safe and sane. You
Okay.
know they're illegal.
If a grandmother owns a home and her grandkids bring fireworks, does that grandmother know that they're illegal?
You know what, I'm sorry. That's how you need to teach your kids, your grandkids, or something. You know
I think
what,
the
that's-
city attorney, I'm jumping in rudely probably, but the city attorney's idea, that was brilliant. Buy in Indio. If you do not buy your fireworks in Indio, they are not legal.
I love it, yeah.
Support them.
Yeah. I just think for a first-year implementation, $2,000 is pretty high.
Well, I mean,
And I want to clarify, that is only for dangerous fireworks. Any other violation of the ordinance, technical violation, is $1,000 per violation.
Gotcha.
but I think at this point, the community understands that if you're not buying it safe and sane, they're illegal. I think, common sense sometimes is not so common, but we understand if fireworks are going up in the sky and they're popping, they're making loud sounds, they're illegal. I'm willing to bend on the fees because I wanted a higher fee from the beginning, because if we're going to be quote unquote serious about enforcement, we need to be serious about enforcement. As far as ability to pay, I'm in no position to tell folks how to spend their dollars. However, if you are below the poverty level, or you probably shouldn't be buying illegal fireworks at any price. So I don't agree with ability to pay. I do agree with the new schedule of fines. I will compromise that, and I appreciate the work that's gone into it. So,
sorry, we got
okay, okay, that's okay. However, the city of Indio has a great partnership with our nonprofits, and this gives our nonprofits the ability to raise some funding. So, I think we made a effort to work on this. However, it might be fluid. We might be back here in a year or 2 years. I'm talking about this again. So, as far as right now, I'm okay with where we're at. So, you have public comments, Mayor?
Yeah, we do have two public comments. First one, Midge, I believe it's Rodier.
Good evening, council and mayor.
Good evening.
Fireworks, something I have a love-hate relationship with. Those who know me know this is not the first time I have spoken to the city council about my concern with fireworks. Sadly, a few people are affecting many of the 90,000, I checked it, are we at 100,000 yet? Plus citizens of Indio when they shoot off all fireworks. But how do you stop them? Sadly, you must shut down all fireworks. The city of Indio just does not have the resources to be everywhere 24/7 to all sites that the illegal fireworks go off in our city. Many of your citizens suffer with things such as PTSD, autism. Often our veterans have issues triggered by the noise or flash of fireworks. Many animals are terrified and flee during fireworks. My own personal dog chewed through plastered walls and outside stucco to escape my house one 4th of July, and therefore had to be boarded at a facility every 4th of July after that at my expense. Just ask any shelter what their busiest day of the year is. July 5th, with January 1st being the second busiest day. How about the fact that I cannot leave my house on July 4th because I have personally experienced 2 fires due to fireworks? Please, I need you to think about all of your citizens, not just the few groups that benefit from the sale of legal fireworks. I ask that you think of the increased expense to our city because of the number of animals that escape during fireworks. Think about the cost of having to have more police officers on duty. Think about the cost of sending fire trucks staffed with fire personnel out to put out the fires started by fireworks. Think about the toll on your citizens that are so affected in a negative way by the fireworks. And lastly, think about, is money for a few worth the cost to many others that may not benefit from the sale of fireworks?
Thank you. We have one more speaker, Ms. Kim Hardy.
Good evening, City Council members, Mayor, City Manager. Ditto with what she said. She did it really well. The only other thing I could say is I was here last the council meeting, and a lot of people said, why should we punish a few when there's only a few bad? Why should we punish everybody when there's only a few bad actors? Well, you're punishing everybody by letting people do fireworks. Nobody can buy fireworks and not affect their neighbors, anybody else in the community because of the sound. So I don't understand. I turn on the TV and see enough fireworks in the news. I mean, with the wars and everything going on, to me, it's an old idea of recreating the Star Spangled Banner, bombs bursting in air, and that idea is so ancient, and we got to move on. It does affect a lot of people. It affects animals. I have a friend that's supposed to be here. Unfortunately, she couldn't. She has 2 autistic kids. One of them, I can read her text if you want, but one of them, the sound affects her so much that she beats her head on mirrors, walls, everything. They hate 4th of July, and we don't have it one day in this town. We have it weeks. So, and like Midge, I can't leave my house. If I'm going out to dinner and there's lots of fireworks going on, I have to stay home. I've had 3 palm trees burned down in my house. So, and that the city, nobody paid for it. We had to remove the palm trees at $2,000 each. So it is an ongoing problem. I don't understand why you think you have to celebrate Independence Day by blowing things up or hearing something loud. So I just really wish you would reconsider it. The nonprofits, I know they do make money, and it's probably good, but by the time they pay for the fireworks and everything else, the profit is a lot less than what you're thinking. As a Rotary member, we did it last year, which I didn't do. I was so upset when they did it, but I think today's world, times have changed. We must be considerate of everybody as a whole, and it's the animals. Everybody's affected. Even when they're at Coachella, they do fireworks there. Half of the entertainers want fireworks, half don't. But you never know when they're going to go off. And I know that I have been one of those anonymous people who have reported illegal fireworks, and the city did go there, and they did find the property owner. And that was 2.5 years ago. They haven't done a firework since. So when you own your property, you're responsible for who and what acts happen on your property. Just like if somebody walks around those new sidewalks you built and broke your leg, it's probably my responsibility because it's on my property still. So please think of the community as a whole. I think you're so afraid that you don't want to, when I was a little kid, they did fireworks, and trust me, I've always thought it was stupid. Because I always thought it was like the big boom sound. I just never really liked them. But it never really occurred to me, and I never was against them until I became a property owner, and I have animals and friends whose little kids are very, very much affected. They have to sedate their little girl, and they would like to do it maybe one day a year, but no, it is several days because you can't control them. Safe and sound fireworks booths go up, 5-6 days before even 4th of July. So just please consider the community as a whole. I don't know if it's too late to change your vote, but there's a lot of people who are affected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hardy. Any other questions or comments from council members?
No. If not, I'll make a motion to introduce by title only and waive full reading of an ordinance of the City of Indio. The City Council of the City of Indio, California, amending Title 9, Chapter 101 related to enforcement of the City of Indio's prohibition on dangerous fireworks with the amendment of taking out the ability to pay on fees.
And that's without the ability to pay?
Yes, without the ability to pay on the fees. Remove that part of it.
Okay. I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Miller and a second from Councilmember Furman. Go ahead and vote. Motion passes 3-2. All right. Move on to item 13.1, resolution 10402 to approve an exchange with Can Do LLC of parcels located on Jackson Street and Avenue 42.
Thank you, Mayor. I will introduce the item while Assistant City Attorney Jillian Martins approaches the podium. This is a partial exchange agreement at Avenue 42 and Jackson Street for identical sized portions of city land with an adjoining landowner. We will have the Assistant City Attorney give a short presentation. I know that there's a lot of talk about the proposed development that is going on next door. I did just want to point out that that development is not before the City Council at today's meeting. That will be going forward to the Planning Commission in the future, and then at a future date, because there's a general plan amendment and a zoning amendment with it, it would be coming forward to the City Council. So turning it over to Jillian.
Hi, good evening, Council. So I will be presenting this public hearing item. Oh, I have a remote here. So just again, background of the way that this transaction came to be. Can Do intends to develop a multi-use commercial project at Jackson Street and Avenue 42. It would include fast food restaurants and a sit-down restaurant that opens up to the golf course. However, the item before you tonight is a one-for-one exchange of city parcels for developer parcels. They are, as Stephen noted, the exact same square footage and would allow for the city to reconfigure its the maintenance yard associated with the golf course. The parcel exchange agreement also describes the construction of a new parking lot for the city's golf course, which would be constructed by the developer. The proposed exchange does not impact any parkland within the city, and the future use of the parcels which developer is granting would be granting to the city should this agreement be approved. The intention, as Stephen alluded to, would be to change the general plan and to change the land use designation to make those now city parcels open space parcels. So we wouldn't be losing 1 square foot of open space upon that transaction. And with the approval of the resolution, the City Council is adopting findings to support the city's execution of the agreement. Approval of this resolution and agreement would allow for the execution of a lot line adjustment to exchange the parcels and outlines future development of the new parking lot and negotiation on necessary easements. And again, to be clear, the City Council approval of the resolution and agreement does not constitute an approval of the development project or any elements thereof. And that's where I leave you. And the developer has a short presentation for you as well.
Hi, good evening. I was hesitating because I didn't know if you wanted to open the hearing first. And I know it was the hearing item tonight.
Go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you, honorable mayor, council members. It's a pleasure to be before you.
Sorry, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay.
Saudi was giving me a stare. I was like, okay, hold on.
Honorable mayor, council members, it's a pleasure to be before you this evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. My name is Les Johnson with TMB Planning, and I'm assisting Can Do LLC, the owners of the property, on this development project. We also have Tom Carpenter and Matt Reinick in the audience too, in case there's any questions that they may be able to answer. Can Do LLC has been a long-standing owner of this property. It's a 6-acre, oops, did I go the wrong way here? Okay. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Can Do LLC has the 6 acres approximately of property at the northeast corner of Jackson and Avenue 42. And as you can see, the site is undeveloped, with the exception being that a majority of the existing Indio, Lights at Indio Golf Course parking lot is within the privately held property. We've been working closely with city staff regarding the land exchange before you, as well as the potential development interest on the site. And the land swap focuses on really a handful of key items that I wanted to bring to your attention. The new parking lot for the golf course, so it'll provide a new parking lot to the southeast of the existing clubhouse that will be on city-owned land. So there will be no longer public parking, if you will, for the golf course on private property. There would be an expansion to the maintenance yard boundary, so providing a more usable space for the golf course maintenance yard facility. Also providing a prominent project entry off of Avenue 42 at the signal, and establishing a sit-down restaurant with a large, expansive outdoor area, seating area up against the golf course, and taking advantage of the views of the golf course and that relationship, as well as providing a site design that allows for ease of vehicular traffic and circulation. That's a benefit to both the golf course and the future development of the 6-acre site. Well, before I move on, I wanted to also point out that this site plan there's been a number of different options and opportunities that have been considered as we've been contemplating the land swap and what land is available. And as a result of that, though it's not for your ultimate consideration this evening, we understand that, but just pointing out that there is a sit-down restaurant identified, as well as 3 pads for restaurant spaces, with 2 of those being designated right now, and that being Chick-fil-A and Dutch Brothers. The 3rd pad is up north of AutoZone off of Jackson, and we have yet to conclude a tenant for that space at this time. These are just a general representation of what is proposed for that sit-down restaurant. And the idea here is, again, to provide a quality outdoor dining experience adjacent to and focused upon the golf course. The land exchange, as was identified, is an equal swap of land, square foot for square foot. The additional property is going to provide that expansion of the maintenance yard area, and Can Do receives the land necessary for the sit-down restaurant to be established as it's identified in close proximity to the golf course, and then also the landscape enhancements at the signalized Avenue 42 entrance, as well as along Avenue 42 itself. And just to summarize again these key points, equal exchange of land is occurring. Again, a construction of a new golf course parking lot on land that's owned by the city, expanded maintenance yard, again, for the purpose of the golf course operations. It's a very odd shape right now, so it'll open that up. Again, that location for a sit-down restaurant to be in direct proximity and in view of the golf course. Also, that the applicant will be assuming maintenance obligations of the landscape areas at that main entrance coming in off of Avenue 42. And then also, what is proposed ultimately for that site would be complementary to the uses that will add to the Jackson Street commercial corridor. So with that, we are in full support of the staff recommendation and the parcel exchange and easement agreement that's before you for your consideration this evening. And with that, if you have any questions of myself or the Can Do ownership representatives, we'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
I have one question. If you could go back to the map, because you mentioned that the sit-down restaurant will be in close proximity with the golf course, but you also stated that there was building 1. Is that building 1 where the sit-down?
Building 2.
The sit-down restaurant would be right in the middle.
Okay, building 2.
Yes.
Okay. I heard you wrong, sorry. Because I look at the renderings and I see that people were in close proximity, but I thought you mentioned building 1 as a sit-down.
Any other questions? No questions? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing then.
So again, everyone has said this tonight, but just to reiterate, the only thing we're considering tonight is the land swap. We're not considering any of the uses or any future requests that may be made by the developer on this land, so there'll be plenty of opportunity for public input on whatever is proposed, which could ultimately end up being very different than what we're seeing tonight. But at this time, the benefits to the city with the parking lot and the swap to expand the maintenance yard certainly do enhance the public services that we do have to offer. So if there's no questions, I would make the motion. They took it down from the screen.
I got quick and I couldn't.
Okay.
My only concern with this is that when we first got this project, many years when you were on the council, we were promised a clubhouse to be able to go along with this when they first came in and were able to do this. Then they allowed us to have the land. They said they didn't have the money, and then they moved it, and now when they move us and put the parking lot on our own property and build it, and we're getting ready to spend $4.5 million on a clubhouse that we desperately need, and I'm just not sure this, I mean, the land swap is different, but I just don't know if that's a good deal for us, and why we're not holding to more of our issues of what happened when we were supposed to get the clubhouse, or the equivalent of what that was, because now we've waited many years for this, and we're getting a parking lot that's on our own land, while the other areas develop. The development of it itself is great, and what ends up on it is based off what the planning commission and everybody else does. But I just don't know if it's in our best interest as a good deal when we're talking about something that is gonna cost us they should be paying more towards that and not the parking lot. That's my personal opinion, so.
Yeah, I think that's a point well made. However, at some point in any transaction, negotiation, you take the best deal that you can get, and I think that's the reality here. This project wouldn't pencil if they were obligated to build a $4.5 million clubhouse. So what might have made sense in 2005, as we put on our 2023 glasses, we have to look at what's going on today and just accept the reality, as difficult as that is, and that's my opinion.
And that was a different owner as well, right, in the past?
It may have been a different owner, but different members, or I don't think the right word, ownership
Partners.
group. Partners.
Yeah. But, and I understand, I'm not saying $4.5 million, but if that clubhouse was worth $2.5 million back then, that takes some of our obligation. I understand about doing it. We've seen it with a lot of the projects with IID and some of the other stuff that's come through, and the costs have gone up. But I love the project. I love Chick-fil-A. I like all the stuff about it. But I think in the best interest of the city, we need to do a better deal in negotiating than a parking lot that we're already owning the land and paving over the top that we could do for ourselves if we really wanted to. Usually a deal's a deal. The project's not dead because they're building 4 more things on it. So obviously somebody's gonna make money or they wouldn't build the deal on it. So the parking lot obviously is a small one. So that's my comments. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other questions or comments? Good to go, all right?
Okay, so if there's no further questions, I'd move forward to approve resolution 10402, approving the parcel exchange and easement agreement with Candu LLC.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem and a second from Councilmember Furman. Let's go ahead and vote. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you, and we'll move on to public comments for items not on the agenda. We have the first one from Midge Rodier regarding city preparedness for disaster.
Was much luckier than the city of Cathedral City. I would personally like to thank the city of Indio for their disaster preparedness program and preparation. During Hillary, the city did a great job of communicating with its citizens through many sources of media. 2 things really impressed me: before, during, and after Hillary, and the 2 large monsoon storms that also hit in Indio, one the Friday before and one about 10 days later. First, getting the information out about the sandbags. It was a little tough at first, but you did it. The city staff went above and beyond their jobs by helping its citizens with filling the bags and assisting many of the citizens of Indio, especially seniors, with loading those sandbags into their vehicles. Thank you. Many of those people were here before. Some of you are here now. Thank you. Secondly, I was extremely impressed when I saw Councilmember Furman in my neighborhood the morning after Hillary hit. He was assessing the damage and talked with my neighbors and I. Impressive. I know the city has many things to deal with immediately after the storms. Flooded roads, Avenue 44, 911 systems going down, etc. However, for future disasters such as heavy rains or winds, it would be helpful if the city could assist its citizens with the cleanup of green waste and debris. Maybe Vertex could have bins in some of the hard-hit areas to help with trees that have lost limbs. Or if you have palm trees, you know what I mean by they unload or dumped. It personally took me 6 weeks of filling my green recycle bin along with using some of my neighbors' bins before I had all of the tree debris on my property cleaned up. Many of those trees were city trees that had dumped in the streets and gutters. Something to think about, please.
Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. And we have another comment from David Sickman.
Dear Mayor Ortiz, fellow council members, and city staff, as a resident of the Coachella Valley and a visible Jew, I feel a duty to open dialogue with Mayor Ortiz and the Coachella Valley Peace Initiative and help define what peace you are advocating for. Prior to October 7th, there was a peace agreement in Israel with its neighbor Gaza and Hamas. In the months that followed, that ceasefire was in place. Hamas sent rockets regularly, targeting Israeli civilians, homes, and cities, which did not cause civilian deaths only because of the Iron Dome. Israel, being merciful, did not consider all those firing violations of the ceasefire that was in place. They thought it was relatively under control and civilians were relatively safe. This changed when Hamas completely violated the ceasefire with brutality and evil, torturing and murdering over 1,400 people in one day. Over 1,000, which were civilians, and almost 300 young adults at a music festival similar to our Coachella Valley Music Festival. The horrors of that day are beyond barbaric. Children had limbs cut off, women were raped, etc. Israel left the Gaza Strip, which was a prospering, beautiful area filled with farms and homes, forcibly removed their citizens in order to achieve peace. Within 2 hours of Israel's leaving, Hamas started firing rockets into Israel and destroyed millions of dollars of infrastructure that Israel had left in Gaza, homes, agriculture, infrastructure, and more. In 2006, the Gazans voted Hamas into power, and it has not been a safe or thriving place since, not for their Israeli neighbors and not for the Gazan civilians. Hamas has stated since their first day that they aim to kill the Jews and all those against their beliefs. Any Gaza civilian that does not agree with Hamas has no ability to voice their disagreement in their home. LGBT Gazans risk being thrown off of buildings or having limbs cut off if Hamas discovers their identity. Many have sought refuge in the only democracy in that region, in Israel. Israel is now targeting thousands of Hamas military locations. This includes the tunnel network that Hamas built for their fighters and their weapons. The unfortunate reality is that Hamas purposely plants these weapon stores and fighter hideouts in densely populated civilian areas. They fire rockets from hospitals, churches, and schools. Hamas maximizes civilian deaths because this helps grow their public image as the victims and helps financial aid packages grow, almost all of which goes into the pockets of Hamas leaders. Israel has tried to help evacuate Gazan civilians to safer areas. They have sent Arabic flyers for weeks, and they've called individuals to leave. Hamas set roadblocks, etc., and blocked civilians from going to safer places. There have been 15 ceasefires between Israel and Hamas, and every single one has been broken by either Hamas or its sister organization. A ceasefire now means Hamas remains in power. A ceasefire means that similar violence will repeat as soon as Hamas refills their stores of weapons. It means more reigning terror, which means more civilian deaths on both sides. It means that if given a chance, Hamas will jump for the opportunity to repeat the horrors of October 2nd again and again, October 7th again and again. This is not my opinion, but taken from the mouths of Hamas leaders themselves. Enough tolerating Hamas. Let's support Israel in the goal to eradicate Hamas. Let's free Gaza from Hamas and bring lasting peace. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm happy to open that dialogue, and I'll give you my number after this meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. I
Thank you.
appreciate that very much.
Yeah, definitely. We have one more from Arnie Gilman.
Good afternoon. I'm Arnie Gilman. I'm the president of the Jewish Federation in Palm Desert. Thank you for letting me speak. If you heard the interview today, the leader of Hamas basically is thrilled what is going on in respect to what they did, and he said, I'll do it again. He doesn't care about the Palestinians, he cares about Hamas. I would just like to say that no way should we have a ceasefire, and they're just bad people, they're terrorists, and it's terrible. They're just terrible people. So what I would like, as you just mentioned before, to have a conversation with David, the executive director, Alan Potash, and myself would love to have a conversation with the board and explain what Israel's all about and why we stand by Israel. And the United States government stands by Israel. So we were kind of surprised that you requested a ceasefire because we just don't think it makes sense to deal with people that are terrorists. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for your feedback. Any other public comments, Savdi?
None, Mayor.
All right.
If I could just make a comment, I'm sorry for stirring the pot here. I certainly respect everyone's views and approach, but I would just like to make the comment that the views of a particular council member do not necessarily reflect the view of everybody else on this dais.
Definitely.
Mayor, and I did just want to add a little caveat here. There is a portion of the agenda that is for public comment for items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. As tragic as the October 7th attack on Israel is and the subsequent fighting that's going on, it's not within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council of the City of Indio. It's a foreign affairs issue, more appropriately held by the federal government. So it may be the kind of thing where it may not be appropriate for public comment during a City Council meeting.
We'll consider that next time.
Yep.
You know. All right, thank you. Right, we'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting to our next council meeting, November 15, 2023. Thanks.